Yay, day, 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 day. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom. That is a true call and response in our faith tradition, that we cry out to the divine and hoping that the divine responds. And this evening, Cantor, this Shabbat at Temple Solel in Hollywood, Florida, we are so delighted and blessed that the call to the divine is heard and responded not only between myself and Cantor, your clergy, to all of you who are assembled at home and from wherever you join us, but also heard in our beloved sanctuary. How blessed we are, finally, to resume again in-person services, not only tonight, but we pray and hope in the coming Shabbats ahead. We have lots of programming ahead of us in this month and the month to come, and tomorrow morning we're even going to have Torah study here, again, in the temple. Be able to enjoy one another, free of any restrictions or limitations, we hope, and look forward to all of us. We just made the announcement, I think it was today even, so for the few that are gathered here today, we've been eagerly awaiting that announcement, so grateful you are here. From us, from a little bit further away, we really look forward to seeing you in the coming days and weeks ahead. And I couldn't think of a better candidate, congregant, friend, to lead us in the kindling of this renewal experience, Bunny Blattner, who will lead us in the lighting of our Shabbat candles. I have to say, our membership has grown and continues to grow, even during this pandemic, not least of which because of the very fine efforts of Bunny and all of her marvelous team of our membership committee and the membership of you who have been so welcoming in welcoming people back to our very special family of Solel. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, להדליק נר, להדליק נר, להדליק נר של שבת. Amen.
As we continue in worship on page 6, may the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of our synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. As the bride walks down the aisle on her wedding day, how marvelous of a sight to begin that time of anew and afresh of being one with her beloved. So too, as we welcome in our Shabbat, as we welcome in our Sabbath bride, we try as we can to leave whatever the troubles and challenges, the harshness, the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses of our lives at the door of our synagogue, at the door of Shabbat, wherever we find sanctuary. And then, as we join together in our faith, in our community, in the light of Shabbat, in the beauty of our tradition, the beauty of beholding the divine in each and every one of us, choosing an active choice to see the good in ourselves, to see the good in one another, to see the good in our world. That is what we rise for as we rise, not now, but on stanza 9, as we welcome in our Sabbath bride. L'cha dodi. Page 20.
לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך תשמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם. נשוך סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי כי באורך, קומי אורי אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. אם בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לילה 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 פני שבת נקבלה.
We remain standing for our call to worship on page 28.
La 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 la. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. לעולם ועד. לה 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 לה
Friends, please be seated. It's easy in our world to imagine how everything is so full of uncertainty, how so full of unpredictability that we might not see the order of things, that we might not see a sense of design or a sense of intelligence or a sense of understanding. Even so much so because some of those words have been misinterpreted and misused for other means in our cosmos. And yet, the divine does provide us an opportunity for reliability in our world. Each and every Friday, as we enter into Shabbat, we know that Shabbat is coming. We know that Shabbat is here. No matter what the challenges or the troubles or the bends in the road of our world, we can always look forward to Shabbat. This parallels, in fact, not only the Sabbath, but one of the virtues of religion as a whole, one of the reasons of a faith community, to know that we can depend on certain truths of righteousness, of goodness, of civility, of love, of kindness, that we can depend on our friends who fill their hearts and their souls with those virtues, and so too also to know that our world, despite even some terrible things that may occur as we experience the changes from day to day or week to week or month to month, to know that there is true divinity here with us on earth. Baruch atah Adonai, as we turn on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah potech sharim, tfuna meshane itim, u'chalif et hazmanim, u'msader et ha'kochavim, v'tratem barakia kertsono, borei yom v'layla golel or mibnei choshech, v'choshech mibnei or, u'ma'avir yom u'mevil layla, u'ma'avdil ben yom v'layla Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam ta'imid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Blessed are Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time, and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You, the divine, our faith, our understanding, goodness, love, righteousness, you are the creator of day and night. You are the creator who rolls away light from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed Adonai, who brings on our precious evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hamariv aravim.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ובמצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך
וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. As we continue in worship at the top of page 43, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts. Then may we lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukkot shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. As we continue to praise the Sabbath, V'shamru, page 44.
ושמרו ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, לדורותם ברית עולם.
Our prayer of our Amidah summons us, each and every one of us, to reflect, to discern, to examine ourselves, and to pray, to try to have a dialogue with ourselves in a deeper level and with the transcendent force beyond us. Prayer. What is prayer? Why pray? Cantor and I are going to embark in the not-too-distant future on a whole series of learning about prayer. As the Amidah is an ancient prayer, in fact, one of the most ancient of our whole tradition, one of the earliest prayers that was developed. Some of the aspects of the Amidah derive from Torah, but others are created from the values and virtues and wisdom of Torah, but not necessarily the exact words. There was, at a certain moment in time, Jews who were practicing worshiping, connecting to the divine in a certain way, and then chose, because they felt or were unable or was not relevant to connect to the divine in the way that they had been doing for centuries, even according to their ancient scriptures, that there was need for an evolutionary step, a step forward, an opportunity for change, an opportunity for reform. And from there dawned the construct of prayer. Prayer is itself a Jewish innovation. And so too, when we innovate according to prayer, with appreciation of what we've inherited, but also true to our tradition of our willingness to courageously, boldly consider new forms of prayer, new forms of worship, new forms of connecting to the divine, are we true to the oldest prayers that we have, the Amidah, which struggled forth from this crucible of innovation. And so let us rise for our Amidah, page 46.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Friends, please be seated. We pray together at the top of page 55. It's taking me a little while. I was in the habit of just praying the two of us. They can join us in prayer, right? That's allowed? You okay with that? All right, good. Top of page 55, together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. The bottom of page 57. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds our minds, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find our courage, insight, and endurance, and that our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha bira na'avod. The top of page 59, together. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us, For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leholam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. אתה ומלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
Let us take a few moments of silent prayer and private reflection, guiding language that may be found throughout our prayer books from our tradition, whichever prayers may spring from our hearts.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמרו אמן.
87 years is a long time, and I have to say, since I was really young, not 87 years old, not 87 years ago as some of you might imagine, but for a very long time, and for many with whom I grew up, their parents and their parents knew a very sacred name, a name that had solemn reverence and awe to which all, when called upon, would stand at attention, when the name would bring together folks from very disparate backgrounds and lifestyles, such that they would revere and come together at sacred moments for this special name. And of course, I'm referring to the Washington Redskins. Yes, for many championship series, and of course we're on the eve of the Super Bowl, and I grew up a Washington Redskins fan, and that was the name that many of us cheered growing up in the Washington, D.C. area and from places even further away. And for good reason, not easy. Change is not easy. It comes with it loss and grief and struggle. But for good reason, those of us who had praised the name and its following and its tradition for so many years chose to take a bold and courageous step to demand, to advocate that the name be changed, because we're in a different time, in a different age. And it was clearly offensive, deeply offensive to many. And so we waited a good 2 years as we had the Washington football team. This was not an easy 2 years for those of us who were Washington fans and who had the proud tradition of not just one Super Bowl championship, not just 2 championships, but 3 Super Bowl championships with that name that helped us to come together, including a particular one in 1983, which I shall not mention in this holy abode. And we waited, and then the name was offered to us, the Commanders. The Commanders. And I have to say, it has not gone over particularly well with the Washington fan base. But it might just help if we had a winning season for a change. Another opportunity to pray. The Parsha this week actually invokes that very understanding of the name. I wonder if those who perhaps had thought of a good name maybe would have turned to this portion, or maybe would have valued it as part of the portion. As the Parsha begins, Va'ata Tetzaveh. Ata Tetzaveh. Now, one translation of this is, you shall instruct. You shall instruct the Israelites to bring oil and beaten olives for the lighting of a ner tamid, an eternal light of all time, to be instructed to do this. The word titzaveh, though, I believe is much better translated as command. You shall command the Israelites to light their lights eternally, to be able to do what is necessary to bring the oil and to beat the oil in such a way that it can allow for the continuity and the presence and the symbolism of the divine among us. Titzaveh also may, if we pay attention to the word, sound similar to another very important word in Judaism, mitzvah, right? Do a mitzvah. Titzaveh and mitzvah. They both derive from the same shoresh, tzav. And tzav is an imperative, command, do a mitzvah. I command thee to do a mitzvah. If one examines deeply the word command in Judaism, it has a somewhat different connotation from what we might consider. A commander is one who is attempting to ignite within a person the necessity, the imperative to take action, to move forward in the immediate, to have a sense of urgency to a situation, that it is urgent to do a good deed. I command thee, I ask thee to do something urgent, of necessity, here and now, to run to do a mitzvah. This is what the essence of doing a mitzvah, of having a sense of commandment, means in our faith. To not wait to do something. There are many, many commandments that are elevated in our tradition that ask us to be fulfilled. One, which I think we have some pride in this congregation of late, but there's still more work to do, was a tzav, a commandment, that when there is not enough resources for the next generation, and this comes from the ancient tradition. It sounds like I'm doing a fundraising pledge on Shabbat Eve, but from our ancient tradition, it actually commands us when the future generations have a need, and you see that need and is lacking resources, we are commanded. We are asked to have a sense of urgency to act now, to take action now. And in some measure, this is what was done of late here at Temple Solel, which we should take a lot of pride in. We realized that for a good amount of time that we really didn't have resources that were going to sustain us deeply into the future, despite the fact that we have this wonderful building and a wonderful inheritance and a wonderful heritage, that we needed to take action and to do it now. And people stepped forward and led. And thank God they did, and now we have some resources. Still much more work to do. But that was in keeping with the understanding of the essence of tzav, of titzaveh, of mitzvah. To have that sense of impatience, to get it done. And it's understandable why there wouldn't necessarily be that sense of imperative, that sense of urgency, because anything that has gone on too long that creates systemic challenges is sometimes overwhelming. Think of the environmental crisis. How are we going to get all of these people involved to focus on such a deep need? Or the issues of racism or bigotry or historical disadvantage. How are we going to create any sort of reasonable steps forward to achieve that goal? Or we could even say the disparities of wealth in our society. How are we going to manage our resources properly? What is a good plan to put forward to make that happen? Anything that is a long-term, enduring challenge, it's much easier to just deal with the here and now, because the here and now also matters, and it troubles us, and it concerns us, and it affects us. To take the time to say, no, we need to take action, and we need to do it now. It's natural, friends, to put things off. The Ner Tamid is asked to be placed above an altar. Above the altar, and not just any altar. The altar where David and Solomon built their holy sacrifice, their altar to God at the temple. That same place where our tradition teaches us that Abraham built an altar, and that Noah built an altar, and where Cain and Abel offered a korban, and where Adam offered a korban, a sacrifice. That this, from our Mishnah Torah, teaches that human beings were formed, that we were formed, our civilization was made possible, our existence was only achieved, and our entire development of a religious tradition was only made possible by our eternal light that stood above the place where we made atonement, a place where we offered sacrifices, a place where human beings and humanity, from their highest station to their lowest, throughout all the times and ages, paused to say, I can do better. I can improve. I can act with more urgency. I can take care of the here and now. And so we have inherited in our tradition this great understanding of mitzvah, of commandments, of urgency, of not being apathetic or indifferent. And yet, In the same parsha, we are taught that this is the only occurrence from the beginning of Exodus to the end of Numbers where Moses' name is absent. Where Moses' name, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, is no longer there. Not only in this parsha, but we also discover later on that Moses does not make his way into the promised land, despite all of his hard work, despite all of Moses' willingness to lead, act courageously and boldly, and to deal with problems in the here and now. Why? Because we also learn as Jews that with that sense of urgency can also come a sense of agitation, a sense of frustration, and a sense of anger, and a sense even of impetuousness. We are taught in our tradition that when Moses goes up to the mountain and meets God there and is given the tablets, that the people build a golden calf. And Moses says, I will not move forward with you. I will not pledge myself to you, God, any longer unless you forgive the people. And of course, God does forgive the people when they build the calf. And yet, from this parsha, we are reminded that this is the reason that Moses' name is absent. For Moses, we are taught in that sense of frustration, anxiety, concern, would God forgive the Jewish people for their mistakes? Would God be willing to realize that these Jewish people, they are impatient? And that's what you taught us, to do it now, to have a sense of urgency. And yet, at the same time, we learn that leadership requires savlanut, that leadership requires mindfulness, that leadership requires time, that seeds need to be planted, seeds require time for germination, seeds need time for people to come together to understand one another. So there's a lot in our parsha of Tetzaveh. There's a lot in understanding the value of doing a mitzvah. For as we address our serious issues in our community, in our family, in the world, let us learn from that sense of urgency of Tetzaveh. Let us attack the problems. But also let us not be so overcome by them that we are absent in reaping their blessings. Shabbat Shalom. Let us rise for the adoration.
You forgot the Mishabach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Friends, please be seated. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption, evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. And may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
As we seek the elevation of God's presence in all of our lives, and as we're bonded together so deeply in spirit and in friendship, our prayers also at this point extend to those in prayers of healing of body, mind, and spirit. As my eyes meet yours, please share aloud those in our families and our lives in need of such support at this time. Richard Blanke, Seth Gelwasser, Kathy Greenberg, Dr. Robert Greenstein, Don Gustin, Don Harvey, Larry Jurist, Hannah Cates, Ruth Kornbluth, Phyllis Lewis, Charles Messing, Sharon Metzner, Louis Montiel, Andre Peterson, Elwood Powers, Diana Ramos, Michelle Robinson, Gabrielle Rosenthal, Molly Salsitz, Elena Schroeder, Harry Smith, Larry Smith, Sheila Smith, Amy Sponseller, Ray Strauss, Charlie Wolf, and Martin Zoffman. We continue with our prayer of healing.
מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. אלנה רפאנה לה, אלנה רפאנה לה, אלנה רפאנה לה, אלנה רפאנה לה. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים.
A mournful meditation may be found on page 290. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and owe to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. On this Shabbat Eve, we think of those who passed at this season from years beforehand. Dr. Alan Altman, Sally Apple, Albert Arditi, Yeti Blout, Leonard Butler, Lovis Farbstein, Seal Feinberg, Frida Fleischer, Harry Forrest, Joseph Franklin, Abraham Greenberg, Elliot Hannes, Harry Koplowitz, Victor Cassell, Samantha Keyshawn, Louis Carr, Rosita Krieger, Larry Lane, Philip Leibowitz, Joseph Levine, Abraham Marin, Rhea Orenstein, Charles Harris, Abraham Pomerantz, Gerald Ray, Betty Rosenbaum, Frieda Rothstein, Lillian Rodnick, Helen Schultz, Chaim Schuldener, Morden Signal, Joseph Sternlieb, Samuel Weiss, Morris Wendroff, Charles Winnick, S. Joseph Wolf, Samuel Zarin, and Charles Plost. Are there any additions or changes to any of the names that have been offered? If there are any mourners present, please rise. And with the remainder of the congregation, please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Together, Yikadal v'Yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'amad divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei, B'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, B'gala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei almaya, Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei dekudesha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram bi'ama v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yeshvei tevel v'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn, to which we offer. Amen. Please be seated. We have some words of announcements and some welcoming of shalom, of Shabbat Shalom from our past president, David Topping.
Shabbat Shalom. It's an honor to wish each and every one of you good Shabbat on behalf of the Board of Directors of Temple Solel. Become one of Rabbi Plost's Torah study students. Join him tomorrow morning, either virtually or in person, here at the temple at 9:30 for an interesting and fun hour with your friends. And next Friday, the 18th of February, Shabbat services begin at 7:30, led by Rabbi Plost and Cantor Rosen, and you can choose either in person or virtual. The Brotherhood organizational meeting and get-together is Wednesday, February 23rd. Details will be in the Pathfinder. And Mitzvah Day is February 27th at Dania Beach Patch Garden. We will be building a compost center, filling backpacks for clients of the Jewish cupboard, planting parsley for Pesach, and making tzedakah boxes, which are only a few of the activities in store for us that day. And this is great news. October 21st and 22nd is our new date for our Golden Jubilee celebration. So mark your calendars and highlight the dates in gold. I hope everyone is getting ready for the Super Bowl and enjoying the Olympics. One of the reasons why the opening ceremonies of the 24th Olympiad in Beijing was shorter than usual was because of the temperature. It was approximately 20 degrees during the ceremony last week. That certainly sounds like a soup day to me. For the Israeli athletes, they were probably thirsty for these 5 different types of Israeli soups that are typical in their households during the winter season. First is orange vegetable soup, which does not actually have oranges in it, but the color comes from a blend of pumpkin, sweet potato, and carrots. This is a favorite comfort food in kitchens all over Israel. Second is creamy mushroom soup, the base of which is made with Israeli olive oil. Third is classic lentil soup, which is found in many diaspora Jewish traditional meals. The ultimate comfort food is classic chicken soup, the fourth soup, made by Jewish mothers and grandmothers all over the world for generations. And lastly is curried cauliflower soup, which the Israelis make very spicy by adding turmeric, coriander, hot paprika, chili powder, and cumin. May we all stay warm during these bitter winter nights here in South Florida. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. You, of course, forgot to mention the 6th Jewish soup, guilt soup. Let us rise as we consecrate our Shabbat with the Kiddush.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים.
Chaim, Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And we conclude with our final hymn, Adon Olam.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא אדון עולם והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם בידו אפקיד רוחי בתישן ואירה אדון עולם ואם רוחי גוויעתי אדוני לי ולא אירה אדון עולם אשר מלך טרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
May we continue to bring in the majesty of the divine, led by the urgency we have to take care of one another, to take care of the world, but not be so overwhelmed by our needs, by our anxieties and our frustrations that we don't take the time and the appreciation to see the beauty of one another, to allow the seeds to germinate in our world, and for ourselves to be part of that magnificent process of being led by the divine. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
She was surrounded by her family.